Never shall innocent blood be shed, yet the blood of the wicked shall flow like a river. The three shall spread their blackened wings and be the vengeful striking hammer of God. You people have been chosen to reveal our existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. All eyes to the front. You must watch, dear. It'll all be over soon.
Now you will receive us! We do not ask for your poor or your hungry. We do not want your tired and sick.
It is your corrupt we claim.
It is your evil that will be sought by us.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down.
Each day, we will spill their blood till it rains down from the skies.
Do not kill, do not rape, do not steal. These are principles which every man of every faith can embrace.
These are not polite suggestions. These are codes of behavior. And those of you that ignore them will pay the dearest cost.
There are varying degrees of evil. We urge you lesser forms of filth, not to push the bounds and cross over into true corruption, into our domain.
For if you do, one day you will look behind you and you will see we three. And on that day, you will reap it.
And we will send you to whatever God you wish.
And shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. May swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be.
In nomine Patri.
Et Filii, Spiritus Sancti.
How far are we going to take this, Star?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution? The depth of faith to go as far as is needed?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, we don't have a real well scripted or laid out topic for tonight. It's just going to be kind of a general discussion.
It's my fault, guys. I got
Yeah,
stuff lined up, but
we'll blame it
my
on Nick.
connection's not great. Well, you can't
But that's
really lead something if your connection might go out at any second.
true. Hey, but this will be a fun discussion. Yeah, it's I suggested the topic. I came up with it Tuesday morning. About I don't know what time was it? 5 a.m. No, 4 a.m. I was driving the truck on the way to my first delivery and figured, damn, we need something. So this is what came to mind. And I'll tell you what my thought process was. There's a lot of pushback in a lot of different areas, groups that don't really get along with each other. And they are soundly criticized by the outside world. What do they have in common? They're all promoting some type of patriarchy, even if they're not explicitly saying that. So, which groups are these? Well, you
Are you
have the
talking
red.
about the Mano Swamp and the church?
Okay. Yep. Manosphere, Red Pill, Church, but not all parts of the church. It's kind of the tradcons. They're promoting patriarchy.
Well, I
You
don't
have
know
the
about the
progressive.
Tradcons. Well, no. That might be too conservative for them
Yeah, I was
or
gonna
too
say,
Patriarchy?
traditional for
yeah, I don't
them.
know that I don't see a lot of tradcons doing patriarchy.
No. Okay. I will agree with you, but they are accused of doing
Oh,
patriarchy.
no, that much is true. Yes, they are accused of it. Absolutely.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah,
Um,
uncomfortable. Well, I've heard some things this week between Tim Gordon and Eric Kahn and throwing some shade at the red pill and the uneasy alliance between the red pill and patriarchy or the church patriarchy.
well, Nick, isn't that more a function of the tradcons being attacked for being patriarchs? So because because the tradcons want access to the large media platforms, and they're attacked for being pro patriarchy, they kind of have to say, oh, no, that's not really us, that's these guys, these crazy fringe guys over here in the red pill.
Yeah, they're trying to gain friends by throwing other men under the bus. Oh, we're not those bad patriarchy guys like the red pill. We are the good patriarchy guys. Because we are biblical, Christian, Bible believing, tradition believing, Catholic, Protestant, whatever. Some of them might even be promote Christian nationalism, which is kind of patriarchal when you think about it. Are Muslims patriarchal?
Yeah,
How
that's obvious.
about how about Buddhists?
I don't know. I think it would be irrelevant for them.
far as what they talk about, but how do they structure their families?
Yeah. I mean, the world's just generally traditionally patriarchal. That's the natural order. Nowhere does civilization really flourish under a matriarchy. Hence, where are all our matriarchal models at? In tribal hut Africa.
Or the South African jungle or South American jungle. You know, like the Amazon, right? Um,
Yeah, they, such sophisticated civilization has flourished under that.
but
Let me tell
Nick,
you.
but Nick, the noble savage is noble.
Yeah, look what happened to the long-housed ones here in the U.S. Got conquered.
So what I hear you saying is that patriarchy is a natural. I don't know if I don't know if it's a prerequisite, although it might be. Okay, I'll use that word. Patriarchy is a natural prerequisite for civilization.
It would seem so.
Yeah. Well, just because you adopt some contrary practice doesn't mean it's going to fall apart overnight.
Oh, absolutely true. You can adopt a large number of contrary practices for a very large period of time, and it won't fall apart overnight. Especially if you can convince the men that what you're doing is not actually civilizationally destructive, and convince men that it'll be okay to just follow along, which
How
we've done.
about how about communism? Was that patriarchal?
No,
Not at first.
Marx and Engels were very explicitly matriarchal in their beliefs. It was Engels who studied. He was the one who actually studied the. Nick was talking about the matriarchal mud huts. He actually studied them. He traveled to Africa to study them, and they Marx in his manifesto explicitly stated that the true order of the world is a matriarchy.
Okay, but in practice, in the Soviet Union, was it patriarchal?
Oh, you mean to actually get to implementing it? Oh yeah, no. That was highly patriarchal. um, and Marx would probably have actually agreed with some of that because of his view. Think of his view as you need capitalism to get to socialism so that you can get to communism, right? He would probably say, well, we need the patriarchy to come in and set and build the order that we will then follow, to get us. He'd probably say something like that. I don't know if he did or not. But he'd probably agree with it.
Back when they were operating, the Politburo was pretty much all made up of men.
Oh, it was all men.
Oh yeah, they paid a lot of lip service to equality between men and women. Implemented some laws that gave women more power, but at the top, it was totally patriarchal. And I think the family structure was still very patriarchal, as men were pretty much called the shots at home. Now, it's kind of operates differently there than here. And Plutarch could probably talk about that. But I think on the surface or at the foundation, it was patriarchal.
Oh no, the family was not when the first, when Soviets first took over in Russia. They had to actually walk all that back.
Correct. Nick is correct. There was a big push, mostly by a guy named Leon Trotsky, who Stalin eventually had murdered with an ice axe. Very, very Russian tool to murder somebody with. And he was murdered in, I want to say, Argentina, but it was one of those South American states because he was forced because he did so much damage to Russia in the first 20 years post revolution. He was forced out by Stalin.
Trotsky was murdered in Mexico.
Mexico. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Not
close.
quite South America.
Everything south of the U.S. border, South America. Damn it. So okay, Shu's got a question for us, but he says Stalin went back to endorsing Christianity, at least light mode. He absolutely did. Now that was partly cynical because they rebuilt the Russian Orthodox Church to be an arm of the KGB, NKVD as its precursor, but Stalin knew he needed much of what the church has to say about things like having families and family structure in order to undo a lot of the damage that Trotsky did. There's the famous statue of the man and the woman holding the sickle together side by side. That's a Trotskyism. And Stalin actually ordered a lot of that kind of stuff destroyed later on because Trotsky was trying to say we are all equal. That's why you called everyone comrade. Men and women were completely equal. They were expected to, no different than the men. If the women were told to go work in the factory, you went and worked in the factory.
Yeah, when Bolshevism took over, they tried to implement this equality.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a woman by the name of, I think I'll get this close, Alexander Kollontai.
That's close.
And she was very pro-feminism, pro-abortion, pro no-fault marriage, and they implemented both. Man, the number of divorces just exploded, and there were more abortions than live births. It was bad.
Really changed much on that aspect, I don't think.
It's not quite as bad from what I understand. But
in Russia, Russia's abortion and divorce rates are much higher than the United States. It is never recovered from that. Stalin tried. He really did.
Well, they had to roll back those rules. Okay, they did make abortion illegal, from my understanding.
They made it very difficult.
They made it difficult. They made divorce a little bit more difficult, I guess. And the reason for that is, I think Lenin looked at it and said, "Oh shit, we're not having kids. Mm-hmm. We are in an existential battle, either now or in the future. We are going to need soldiers.
Yes.
We can't keep aborting all our children, or we will be overrun." Remember, the Soviet Union was huge. Well, it was probably not as big at 1917 because it kind of grew after World War II, right?
Yes. Well, the thing that people don't understand is that after World War II, there was a baby boom, a worldwide baby boom. There was a boom in Russia. I can pull up the charts and point you exactly where it occurred. The biggest baby boom was the United States in terms of per capita, but there was a baby boom even in flattened Europe. Once they got even halfway back to a functioning society within like a couple of years, they hadn't rebuilt everything yet, but people started popping out kids. It doesn't actually take much to kick off a baby boom, even if you've been flattened like that. It's kind of cool.
And I would say in all those cases, society was nominally patriarchal.
Well, you had to be. There was so modern matriarchal society requires an outside guarantor of security, right? Now, you can state that Europe's always had one post-war because the US and NATO, and that's true. And look at where they've gone. Look at how far insane Europe's gone, particularly Western Europe, down the feminism path, right? Like they had an external security guarantor and they were able to do a very effeminate society. But in those initial years afterwards, they didn't have, there were no structures through which to enforce that. So they knew they wouldn't be attacked by anyone, but they're like from a foreign standpoint, like Russia wasn't going to come in and attack them. But they're at the local level, you still needed to have patriarchal setups so that the men could protect the women and children from marauding bands of scavengers and thieves, right? I think that's what you're getting at, Steve.
Yeah, well, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just kind of a discussion. So, do you need an external threat to your country, society, civilization, so that the women need to depend on men in order to have a baby boom? And the situation I'm describing, the external threat where you need to depend on the man, is automatically patriarchal. Is that necessary?
No. It's necessary now because of the fall, but it was actually creational. It's not necessary to have a threat to have an established patriarchy.
No, that's not my question. Do you need to have a patriarchal system to have a baby boom?
Uh, uh, Ordinarily,
Yeah,
I'm sure
throughout
somebody could
history.
find a way to engineer a bunch of babies, and have a baby boom. Probably be extremely expensive and probably not very cost productive.
Okay,
I would say yes. I would say yes. You do just throw it out there. Yeah, you do need a patriarchal society to have a baby boom.
I would say yes. No, maybe in the future we can invent a new way, but thinking on history, has there ever been a growing population, internally growing? I mean, self-sufficient, not through immigration, but just growing without a patriarchal system in place, which I don't know, that external threat does have some benefits.
Well, you're assuming a paradise. There's no paradise where they can just function economically and physically as equals amongst themselves. There's always an outside threat. There's always disease. There's always war. There's always famine. And whoever's strongest will seize power.
Yeah, okay, that's too general, Nick.
Well,
Right now
what
in
happened
the
to France?
US,
What happened to France? What happened to France when they had their Jacobins? Equality. Who took
yeah,
over? Who took over after that shit?
Napoleon.
Yeah, imagine that.
Well, then did it become patriarchal again at that point?
No,
Did I? Well, I
he
think
was the patriarch.
Well, I think right. It's like, are we talking about local? Like at the family level, was the culture patriarchal, or was the governmental system patriarchal? Is that what we're crossing wires?
I don't know where I'm going with that. Did they have a baby boom when Napoleon took over?
Don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know either.
There may not be data on it at all.
I mean, the premise here is, do you need a patriarchal system to have a baby boom? That's really what we're discussing. Okay, now we're bringing up points of history. Oh, gee, I don't know what happened in that time. I don't know either.
Look what happened to the tribe of Benjamin. Remember, there's that tribe in the Book of Judges, and they committed Sodom, sodomy against this Benjaminite, his wife, and they sent the parts throughout all Israel. And what did the patriarchy do? Well, they got rid of them, but then what do they do with the women? Well, the patriarchy had to give them patriarchs, and they had babies.
Imagine that. Well, let's think about our modern world. Well, let's think about the U.S. Does the U.S. currently have much of an external threat? I mean, over the past, 50 years.
Not really, no.
No,
No.
we act like we do. We don't.
Right.
So, do the U.S. women, need the U.S. men for protection? Individual men in the basic family structure?
No.
Nope.
And is our basic family structure right now patriarchal?
No.
And is
It
our
has the
birth
mask of
rate
it, maybe, but it's not that.
great?
No.
Hmm.
So, okay, there might be something to this. Maybe somebody could do a study on this. The correlation between patriarchy and birth rates.
Well,
Ass-
see, we have
ass-
the problem is they wanted people to sign up for marriage, but is actually currently is it's not real marriage, which would be patriarchy. It's what we call male concubinage, where the man therefore surrenders his status to his master, the wife, and her real.
So you're saying if you don't have a patriarchal system, your marriage rates will also decline?
Well, they have. The data would suggest that is a true statement.
Do men at their core, in their behavior, want to get married if it's going to be an equal household or a nagging wife? Or do men really want to get married only if they can be head?
Well, we have to separate the. We lost Nick. We have to separate the. You have to separate the men who have been brainwashed into thinking that equalitarian marriages are a good thing. They objectively are not, but there's many men out there who believe that they are. Yes, it always turns into simping. It can't not, but
Okay, I'll grant you that, but does it matter? I think that propaganda works for a generation or two. And then eventually, young men who are always kind of questioning what the recent history is, questioning their father's decisions, young men kind of start acting differently. I would say young men now are saying, "Man, this system sucks." It's not. They're not going to use the words saying it's lacking patriarchy, but they certainly are in general saying, "I'm not signing up for that."
yeah. But
So
that is not really men understanding. Like they are reacting to their self-interest, which is fine, but that's not men understanding what has been done to them or how their own actions are contributing to the rise of patriarchy again. That's just men saying, fuck this shit, I'm out.
again, I'm going to push back on that. I don't think they're doing it out of self-interest. I think they're doing it out of self-preservation.
Okay, I'd just argue that's a form of self-interest, but okay.
But I think in general, men are not afraid to step up, take responsibility, and make a difference in the world, and have kids, and leave a legacy, a progeny. They kind of want to do that.
Generally
But-
speaking, yeah, they do.
But I think they're right now saying the juice ain't worth the squeeze. And they cannot really articulate why it is so. But I think we can say it's probably a lack of a patriarchal system.
Right. So there's been a number of things where I've been watching as look, we don't have a good sort of old school teacher of what this stuff should look like. So men are having to come at this from first principles, whether they recognize that's what they're doing or not, right? I've watched the same thing going on in the political fights. The Republicans have now discovered the power of the primary, and they're cutting a swath through the old guard Republicans. Well, that's kind of the same thing that Steve is talking about. You had these generations that were brainwashed into believing certain things. They took, and maybe those things for a time were useful to society, but now they're not, and they've taken these ideas to absurd extremes. Okay. And so but they, we've talked before about how the boomers kind of all bought houses cheap and then pulled up the ladder behind them. Okay. But you can apply that concept to almost anything. The boomers are, why is Mitch McConnell still in office? The dude's a vegetable. He shouldn't be there. But because of his desperate need to hold on to power, he still is. And mostly he's gotten good at fracturing the base enough to give him unlimited access to power. Okay. Well, that works on a bunch of people who broadly agree with how you're trying to use the power. But the moment that you get past that generation, like Steve's talking about, you can't keep it. But that generation doesn't know how you got it. They don't understand the systems and the rules. The mistake people make is they think, oh, well, they don't understand and they never will. No, they are figuring out how to use these systems against the people in power, and the people in power are screeching about it because the people in power now don't understand how the people in power now did not build the systems that they used. The current iteration of the federal government and Congress was all architected by the Greatest Generation. And the Greatest Generation's primary thing that they were trying to do was their battle cry was, we can never allow this to happen again. And this, for them, they all understood it to mean nationalism that is so evil that it results in the extermination of millions of people. Okay. But that has morphed into this concept that nationalism itself must be, the concept of nationalism must be eradicated to effect the final solution to the problem of nationalism. And so,
With one exception.
well, of course.
I mean, there is some kind of small nation. It's very nationalistic, globally nationalistic.
Yeah, well, no, but see, they're special because they were the most oppressed of all.
Right. So now they get to oppress, and call,
Right.
mow the grass,
But
so they can expand, even though they don't have the population that needs expansion.
right. So though the systems that were built by the greatest generation who won World War II to effect this policy were taken up by people who whose entire goal was to continue that work. But because that work was largely completed 10 years after the war, they just kept on going. And so those people are all using the system. Like, why wasn't the Save America Act passed? Well, there's Senate parliamentary rule that was enacted by, if you go look at it, the greatest generation. So you get somebody like Mitch McConnell coming along, or who's a John Thune. These are people who were raised in that system, but they don't understand the purpose of the system. So when people figure out how to use the system against them, they just screech, but they don't know, but they can't let go of that because that's their system that they're defending. And that's how the Republicans have been so thoroughly dismantled in less than a year. So the younger generations are doing as Steve has suggested here. They are just looking at this going, yeah, great. We're going to do something else. Because that's how this always goes.
And the boomers, what are they doing? They are holding on to power, which the system that the previous generation set up. They're just holding on to power for their own selfish reasons.
Yeah.
Like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. A lot of these old farts. I mean, do they need the money? No. I mean, everybody else retires. Why don't our politicians retire? Oh, it's about they want the power. Are they really doing good in there? Are they really looking out for the people?
Oh, but Steve, this hits on a very important aspect of patriarchy that no one talks about. It is the responsibility of those in power to look out for the people that they are that they have been. I'm going to use the word elected, but I mean that in a more spiritual sense than a voting sense. It is their job to look out for the people who elected them to look out for the group.
Well, let's just say it generally, the people they represent.
Okay, yeah. That could be your family, right? You as
Right.
the father of your children represent. I could also say you were elected by God to represent your family. That's why I used it, right? You can,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So not all elections are democratic elections. Is really what I'm trying to say there. So okay, so the people in power. I mean, shit. Twitter's been fighting all week over this Dignidad Act, which is just an amnesty bill. Well, okay. Are they looking out for us, or are they looking out for somebody else? Okay, now, Steve, I want to go some here with this, and
Okay.
because the person the representative in the House pushing this Dignidad Act, it's literally a Spanish title for a U.S. law, is a woman. And we know in the red pill that women have they see out groups, people not part of the in group of the political in group, as babies who need protection. They need food. You give the helpless baby food and protection, and it grows up, right? That's how and so we have
or a cat.
or a cat. Yes, exactly. Okay, so the person leading this is not doing this the woman leading this is not a patriarch, because we put a matriarch in a position of power. That is on us, but that has infected, that way of thinking has been so pushed that even men go along with it and say, oh yeah, right, we have to do this. Well, those aren't patriarchs. The patriarch's job is to take care of the people he represents, is elected to, etc. Okay. The Congress was set up as a patriarchy by the founding fathers, but it is not that today. It got perverted. So
And there,
go ahead.
and a representative has to make tough decisions.
Yep.
There's a term that our illustrious president has used. Short-term pain for long-term gain.
As a concept, I actually like it.
It's true. I mean, that's part of patriarchy. It's his use of it is kind of a little bit perverted, I think, but I mean, that's my political opinion. Maybe, I don't know, is Trump acting like a patriarch?
No. I hate to say that, but no. He was elected to do a very specific list of things, and he hasn't done any of it. And I know the MAGA types, the MAGA tards will be in the thing to, oh, but he's done this and that. He's done some things.
Yeah, he's done some things. But who is he putting first?
A outgroup polity.
It seems evident that that's true.
Now that's what you're getting at. And so the latest sort of attack on that argument has been, well, the president is an emperor in outside of the borders and a mayor inside, and I'm like, yeah, guys, he was elected to cross the Rubicon, like that whether you recognize it or not, he was elected to cross the Rubicon. The people demanded specific that their patriarch, and he was very much elected in a patriarchal fashion. You hear the left whine about how he's a strong man all the time. Yeah, that a patriarch is a strong man who has the ability to defend his tribe. Okay, he was elected that way. He was not elected for foreign adventuristic purposes. He was elected to be a strong man to protect the tribe. And he didn't.
And arguably, he's not doing that at all now.
I mean, I mean, I don't want to get too politically weedy on that. The point here is just that he was elected to be a patriarch, and he wasn't. He was chosen to be a patriarch, and he's not. And shoo. It's not that I think that he is there's a lot of people who are saying that this was intentional by him. I don't think so. But it goes back to what I was saying before about Mitch McConnell. Trump still very much believes in the post-World War II systems. So when any judge anywhere in the United States writes an order that says he can't do something, he goes, oh, okay. Because that's the system that was set up. The judges were given that level of power over the executive. And so he just has to go, oh, okay. I guess I can't do that. But you know what I can do?
Then he calls them names too.
Oh yeah, he does. But he says, but he's looking around going, well, what can I do? Oh, foreign adventurism. And he can. He has pretty broad remit in that regard. So, but I think people misinterpreted him. I don't think they really understood who he was. And I think he misunderstood what he was supposed to be.
Well, okay, I want to move this someplace else, but I'm going to branch off here.
Okay, cool.
I would say the Democrats, liberals, progressives, since Trump blusters a lot and acts the role of the strongman, they cast him in the role of patriarch and then say he's got toxic masculinity
Mhm.
and and therefore patriarchy is toxic. You see my logic there, or attempt
don't.
at explaining their logic. Now,
Well,
pick
theirs
that
isn't
apart.
logic, so theirs isn't logic. So trying to create a logical form out of it, that's not logic so much as it is guilt by association, right? And it's not just guilt by association. It's we declared this thing bad so that we could make you guilty by association, and that's what they actually did there.
So, this concept of toxic masculinity or toxic patriarchy, all dominant or men in authority are therefore toxic when they're ruling. It's kind of painting with a broad brush. But there are toxic males. There are toxic men, toxic masculinity of some form, but the toxic kind isn't really the true kind.
Right. Well, I mean, the progressives in general believe that they can redefine any word to mean anything they desire. So,
I mean, the feminists certainly call patriarchy toxic.
you know, of course they do, because the feminists are literally anti-patriarchy. Their goal is matriarchy, not just matriarchy, female domination of all aspects of life. That's their goal. Whether they state it or not, I don't care. Their actions say that that's what their goal is. So, sure.
Well, I know they don't realize it, but are feminists anti civilization?
Yes, they are, but they not every one of them will tell you that that is in fact wrong, and that the only way to achieve the next level of civilization is through matriarchy.
Okay. Who's going to lead us there?
Well, the women are I'm just repeating the feminist answer now.
Okay. Can they win?
Not without the strength of men backing them up, which is why they've needed to run massive propaganda campaigns on men. They literally need men to buy into this future so that men will enforce it for them.
Yeah. But will that work? Short term or long term? Answer
Short
both
term, yeah,
ways.
it'll work. But long term, it requires the subjugation of men. It requires men willingly subjugate themselves to women in all aspects. And men just are not naturally going to do that in large numbers.
Hey, I would say it's working right now. Because we already talked about the old fart staying in political office because they want the power. And they're basically doing the bidding of women to keep other men down, basically younger generations. How long can they sustain that? Well, they're mortal beings. They're going to die. And eventually, the younger generations are going to gain power. And are they going to do the same thing?
No. I tell you that right now. The younger generations that gain power will not do the same thing. Because the younger generations, I know it doesn't look like it, but the younger generations are not nearly as ideological as the elder generations. They just aren't. Because they've had to be, in order to survive life up to this point, they have been forced to be practical. Not in an autistic sense, but just in there's certain things I have to do to survive in this world.
I'd call it pragmatic.
Yeah. And this is normal. This is expected.
It's all fucked up right now. I don't want to take charge and fix it, but if I don't do it, if us men don't do it, it's not going to get fixed. So I guess got to do it. I think that's going to be their attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll ask another question that would be in the mind of feminists who remember they look at everything from standpoint theory, from their standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So is the purpose of patriarchy the oppression of women?
Okay. If your goal is to give women complete dominance over men, then yes, absolutely it is. Now, is that what patriarchy actually was? No. Look at how we've talked about patriarchy. So thus far, the purpose of patriarchy is that you are elected either by God or by humans to defend your tribe, however big or small that tribe is defined. Could be your family, could be a nation, could be a state, could be a county, could be a city, right? Your purpose is to defend that. Now, if you live in a world where you think there's nothing left to defend against, then of course you think you don't need patriarchy anymore. And the feminist worldview rules. That is why it is critical to the project of feminism to dismantle the concept of nation states. Because if everyone on earth is all part of the same tribe, then no one on earth will fight each other and there's no need to defend from anyone or anything. So you don't need a patriarch. That is following the Marxist, capitalist, socialist, communist progression. It's that same concept applied to culture.
I would kind of agree. You don't need a patriarchy until you do. When there's no external threat, you don't need a patriarchy. External threat arises, all of a sudden, who's going to be asking for the patriarchy?
The women. Because the women don't want to defend themselves. That's risky. That's work. You might die doing it. Oh, no. I need a man to defend me.
Can any society live in perpetuity without external threats?
Oh, that's never happened in human history. So the formal answer is we don't know for sure one way or the other. That's the formal answer.
But in the process of no threats, there's also no challenges for men.
Correct.
And men get soft, and then we give in, and things kind of wind down. And when they wind down, we're actually weak. And then someplace, somewhere, there's a group of more dominant strongmen who come in and create a threat or enslave you. And then all of a sudden, oh shit, I guess we got to man up as a society. And so patriarchy asserts itself again because you can't, I don't think in practice, I mean, I'm just thinking about history. I mean, empires rise and then they're at their pinnacle for a while, and eventually an empire comes to the end of its days.
Yeah. Again, we've never had a fully unified society, a one world government, to use the old term. So we don't know what will actually happen, because right now there is always some outside threat actor. You can tell yourself that they're not a threat for a while, like we did with China, until we decided, oh shit, maybe they are a threat. Okay. And then you, or you know, Iran, you can tell yourself that they were not a threat until they decide to start bombing shit. Then, you know, you can do that with any of them. But we've never, and this goes back, so the feminist communist utopia would say that, well, we just haven't gotten there yet. But what we need is men to get on board to crush these other threat actors that are preventing us from achieving a unified one world tribe. Now, they clearly haven't thought this through yet, because in order to beat their strong men, you need stronger men, who are then, of course, going to continue to take power inside your own society. Whether they do that militarily or politically is irrelevant. It's all force. And they will be able to apply more force than the women can. So the goal that the feminists are shooting for is they need to indoctrinate men that the use of force is bad unless that force is used to defend women and raise women up. Then it's good. And they're trying, and they've had some success with it. I wouldn't say that it's been wildly successful, but you can see it with the simps and how they behave. So I don't.
This is all about force.
At the end of the day,
So,
yes.
If women can prevent men from using force or decide how men should use force, then could it be a stable system?
No, because the men will eventually decide that they have force. A man somewhere will decide that he wants to apply his force for his own ends. That's a biological fact.
True enough, but before we get to that point, we got the situation we're in now. The men at the top are using force to maintain the status quo, get along with women, kind of somewhat use the force on behalf of women. The young men are not really using force against the system. They're just not showing up.
Yes, but that's not patriarchy.
Not yet. No, we're in transition to patriarchy.
Right. The system we have now is there isn't really a word for it, because it isn't matriarchy in a strict sense, although they are trying to make it into one with the number of female senators and Congress critters. Okay. But it's not there yet, because in a true matriarchy, it would be just women. It would be a woman president, 100% woman Congress, 100% woman judiciary, right? That would be the ideal matriarchy. They are mostly willing to grant men temporary positions of power where they need them to exercise force against other men. Okay. So there's a transitional period. They think that they are just working that transitional period right now. That period between capitalism and communism that Marx talks about. That's their model for this.
So we've kind of moved away from DEI, but that was a really big thing. Was DEI an attempt to suppress patriarchy? Talk for a minute, and I'll be back in about a minute.
Okay, well, I'll see what I can do.
How does DEI relate to patriarchy? That's really the question.
Well, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea being that diversity is a strength, so having more women in positions of power to the point of some arbitrary 50% or greater number. Equity, we need to enforce equal outcomes for women, so women make up half the world. So we need to have half women in all positions of power. And then, of course, inclusion, we need to be more inclusive to women in places that were not traditionally female friendly. Okay, cool. DEI was an attempt to do the first half of the transition. Remember what I said. Their primary goal, or their long-term goal, is 100% female everything. Female executive, female Congress, female judiciary. But they recognize that there's going to be a transition period, and so DEI was really a tool to force the transition to happen at faster than it was going. And I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff in general, because as we've talked about before, these people are getting old. They're running out. They're running out of time to effect their goals. So I think DEI was an attempt to try and force it to move faster than it was moving, because the people were not compliant enough.
DEI was opposed. It was an alternative to meritocracy. Because if you have to hire, you have to get a diverse workforce. You have quotas of people you have to hire.
Yeah.
It's really anti-meritocracy.
I would call that an effect of what they were trying to do. They're trying to push an unpopular societal change, and they're trying to ram it through as quickly as possible because they're running out of time to do it. The fact that it's anti-meritocratic, well, they almost don't talk about it. Like that's not a thing that they care one way or the other. They would say, well, if meritocracy means that females are not equally represented, then meritocracy is bad because diverse representation is the most important goal of humanity. So for them, deleting meritocracy would be more of a fringe benefit than it would be the primary goal.
Right, because some people might not be as equipped, might not be as strong,
right,
might not be as smart. And, it's like, oh, save the poor widow thing. We need them in power too.
Right.
So go ahead. Oh, is patriarchy consistent with meritocracy?
Sometimes. Okay. And the reason I say that is because some men are fathers who shouldn't be fathers. They did not get, you do not become a father through merit. We do not use a meritocratic system to decide who should become a father and who shouldn't. We do not use a meritocratic system to decide whether or not that father has the ability to enforce the rules of his rules on his house. For example, there are rules that all patriarchs, at least in the Christian space, that all patriarchs are required to live by. Right? There is a superset of rules. So, and you live by them or you don't, but that's not a merit thing. That's that's
Well, on that aspect, yes. But that superset of rules that kind of is supposed to be, well, natural law rules, the way men need to govern themselves in their conduct with others. You follow the rules, I'll follow the rules. Now we're going to compete. May the best man win. That's a meritocracy. Not within our, not, okay, you get your family, I'll have my family. I'm not going to tell you how to do things in your family. If you fail in your responsibility to your family, not really my concern unless it hurts society. But in the outside world, in the greater world, in the external world, in the functioning of society, yes, it's may the best man win.
Only if
Well, at least ideally.
I was going to say ideally, yeah, only if the men decide that they all want to participate in the competition. And of course, your grifters, cheaters, and liars, they're all trying to not participate honestly in the competition. And those guys are out there. They're not the majority,
Sure.
but they are out there.
But they're not following the innate rules.
Correct. I would argue that they are not patriarchs either. Not in an idealistic sense, at any rate. They might be patriarchs in terms of their, well, I have I have children, therefore I am their father, therefore I am their patriarch. Like, okay, in a technical sense, yes, but not an idealistic one.
Well, they kind of serve a role of the external threat that makes the patriarch necessary and keeps him at, owns his strength and challenges him and causes him to be need to be a strong man to do his job within the family, do his duty, I should say.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I mean, if all the bad guys were eliminated, the world would become too safe and men would get too weak. And so that would make even moderate bad guys rulers. And then evil would return.
All of this is underpinned by the female idea that all humans are fundamentally good people, and it was only external factors that made them want to do bad things. And so all we need to do to fix them is to undo the bad things that were done to them, to make them feel better about the bad things. This is why you see liberal judges releasing, killers onto the street again and again and again. Oh, it's not his, he's not a bad person. Bad things were done to him. And ironically, they're creating a class of external threat. They're creating an entire class of it, which will then...
Go ahead, finish it.
Well, I was just going to say that it will force the rise of a new patriarchy, and you're already starting to see that.
Yeah, look at our education system as well. Women complain that men say and do things that hurt women's feelings. Therefore, we need to train the young men in what is toxic thoughts and what is good thoughts. And if we train the men to be the men that the women want them to be, the world will be safe. And then we don't need patriarchy. We don't need that evil patriarchy.
Right. All of these various things that you see in the world are pointed at one thing. And that is creating a world where women are free of the need of men at all. They don't need men to protect them because the world is safe. They don't need men to apply force because the world is safe. And so, in a world that is perfectly safe, men become superfluous in their mind. Yeah, shoo. Actually, this is sometimes feeling bad is a good thing. Can inspire positive change. Absolutely. The thing about this that and here's the thing, and this goes back to right where we started with matriarchal societies all being mud hut societies. There is only a certain amount of that any group of people can achieve without any external pressure whatsoever. People say, "Oh, well, okay." The word that people would use is stagnation. But stagnation implies that there's somebody keeping the systems of today running. Well, that requires men. I don't see women lining up to go work in sewage treatment plants. I don't see them lining up to go work the high voltage power lines. And these are all things that are necessary to keep the standard to which women are accustomed to today. So if your end goal is the end goal is not, strictly speaking, to get rid of all men. The end goal is to turn men into a different species where the men themselves are not just subservient to women, but dependent upon women. And you can see this in a lot of the way that the feminists write about how men should treat women. They're trying to make the men dependent on the women, and dependent on the women for their very survival.
That's funny, because then when the women achieve that, are they attracted to those men?
Oh, Steve, you don't understand. At this point, you won't need men because science will allow them to create more women using the stem cells of women and out of the women's femur. The reproductive cycle turns into, and by the way, that science is actually wildly misrepresented by these people. But that's their view. Science will come up with a way where female reproduction is just an extension of women.
Okay, great. I can just see the increase in lesbian dead bedrooms.
What was the divorce rate amongst lesbian couples? 75, 80%, something like that. Women understand women and they all hate each other. Steve, that's all true. But here's the thing. The women will be in charge and they will have a subservient slave class to take care of their society for them. But women have no interest in change. In fact, women find change to be scary. So there will be no progress. If women are in complete control, there will be no progress of anything, of any kind.
Will there be maintenance?
Yes, and that's what they need. That's what they need the subservient male class for.
Okay, can you have maintenance? Can you maintain the system without having a hierarchy? And if you put all men in this being ruled by women position, then women are going to do everything by committee. And, women really, the feminists, like to eliminate hierarchy because we're all equal. Mm-hmm. And without hierarchy, can anything get done?
For a time. For a time, it will continue to function. The system functions on inertia. And the women, it's actually very much like what happened post-World War II. The women who start this will understand that there is some necessary hierarchy that is required, and they will operate to that. But as time goes on and the system doesn't die, you get follow-on generations who don't understand that such things were necessary to maintain the system, and they get enamored with their ideologies because they've been able to sit and do nothing but talk about their ideologies because the world is safe for them as a result of the system. And they stop taking care of the system. By the way, that this is broadly mirrors the generational cycle that we've talked about before. And these system, no system survives more than about 100 years as is. We're coming due for the next rebuild. But the idea that women are immune to this because women have different views on things like hierarchy and patriarchy, no, because it is human psychology that when the system is stable and safe, humans take their eyes off maintaining the system and start to think that they were literally born into it, so they don't know a world where there isn't an unsafe, unstable system. And so to them, the system has always, is always, and will always be safe and stable. They can't conceive of a world outside of that. And so they stop keeping the system. They stop maintaining it.
But what you're kind of implying is stability is a breeding ground for instability.
Correct. That's where the cycle comes from. And it is inescapable.
So is patriarchy cyclical?
Yeah. To some extent. Patriarchy is more stable throughout the cycles. I can point to many examples throughout history of that. If the patriarchal systems survive, you still go through these external cycles of strife and rebuilding, but the patriarchy allows you to rebuild fairly quickly.
Well, there's times in history that have been highly patriarchal and other times less patriarchal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think being less patriarchal sows the seeds for the need to become more patriarchal.
Mm-hmm.
Because less patriarchal is a sign of peace and stability, which is grounds or the fertilized soil for instability.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have instability again, patriarchy is going to rise. And people, because it needs to. So I don't think patriarchy can ever be eliminated, no matter how much people try to eliminate it and come up with another solution.
Oh,
I think it's just innate.
I totally agree. I was trying, my goal was to try and describe what the feminist ideal endpoint is. I was making no claims that they were ever going to be able to achieve this.
That. Are feminists good at predicting the future?
No, God, no. No human is, by the way. Some of us are better than others at it, but that's usually a combination of experience and intelligence and paying attention.
Let me say it differently. Are feminists good at planning for the future?
No.
Are men good at planning for the future?
A little bit.
Yeah. At least they try.
Right. The men will at least try. Many of them will get it wrong, but at least they put some effort into it.
Okay, so how much of this infighting amongst various groups is related to patriarchy? Man, are the nationalists patriarchal? Is the red pill patriarchal? Are certain of the church biblical guys patriarchal? Are we just battling our allies over whose ideology wins in the patriarchal system to come?
It's a good question. Not every one of those ones you listed would claim themselves to be patriarchal. I'll tell you that for sure. There's whole chunks of the red pill that don't really care one way or the other about patriarchy. There's
I know.
large parts of the church that consider themselves anti-patriarchal. So
that's very true. But outsiders accuse Christianity of being too patriarchal. Broad brush.
Mm-hmm.
Outsiders accuse the red pill of being too patriarchal with a broad brush. Depends on your perspective. Whether you're inside those groups saying, hey, not all of us are patriarchal, or you're on the outside making accusations.
Sure. And broad accusations are generally better for the outsider. If you try and take a nuanced take, you could very easily end up coming to the conclusion that your accusation was not correct. So, and that we don't want that to happen because we need the accusation to be correct. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made it. So,
well, I want to. You can take over and lead us anywhere, anytime you want. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep leading this.
Oh, I did enough of a political roundabout a while back. I wouldn't say that there is any one group that is really patriarchal. That is really just like that's their whole gig. Does the red pill say a bunch of things that would end up being patriarchal if they were actually applied? Oh yeah. Are there pastors who are explicitly patriarchal? Oh yeah. I don't know that an explicit push to patriarchy is going to be the thing that ends up mattering. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's going to happen, even if people don't realize it.
Exactly. Patriarchy will come back out of simple need. The women will need it, and so they will welcome it back with open arms because it's better than dying of cold or starvation or at the end of the spear of a invading horde. Right. So the women will welcome its return with open arms and smiles on their faces. But that is a function of other things happening. And I think that might be what you're kind of getting at, is that patriarchy itself, it is the natural order, but because it's the natural order, it doesn't need it doesn't need a specific group, so to speak, to come along and push it. No, you just need bad things to happen and it will reassert itself.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of where I was going. So did patriarchy exist in the beginning? Or is it a man-made creation? That's really a question for Nick, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Biologically, I would say it's existed since the beginning. Men are stronger. Men are always going to be able to apply more force. Therefore, they were always going to be able to set themselves as the head above women in the power hierarchy.
And then there's the point that Atlanta wanted to make. Wanted us to make. So if we go back to Genesis, that's really a patriarchal story. While they were sinless, they talked to God, walked in the garden with God. He was a patriarch. Okay. Adam was created with dominion and authority. Eve was created to help him. hierarchy. Yeah, it was patriarchal. Adam was also the first man, the prototype for the king. Um, so Adam had authority, and the Bible also talks about raising your children and disciplining your children. And I'm not meaning punishing, I mean teaching the ways of right and wrong. And, it necessitates the man using judgment and passing judgment and using his authority and discipline on those under his authority. Under his authority means those he is representing. And also, we can fast forward to Christ. His that duty even is unto death, because you love those you represent, you're actually willing to die for them. So Christ is also a model of patriarchy and hierarchy. If you're not Christian, does it matter? Aren't these truths true for all men, whether they're Jewish or Christian or Islam or anything? Isn't there really is no difference in the nature of men and women. I just expressed to you the Christian biblical view. But you don't even need to be a Christian to believe in patriarchy.
If you're an atheist, you go back to what I said. Oh, well, men are stronger than women. That's the biology. Therefore, men will always be able to exercise power over women. They simply have more force to apply to the problem. That means that in the biological system, the patriarchy will be the naturally expected outcome, and a matriarchy would be a outcome that requires external force applied to it to achieve. That's just how it works. Now, you could say, oh, well, but there's this, go to sci-fi and say, oh, but this author made a sci-fi novel where the females of the race were the stronger ones. And okay, yeah, they would probably be the ones in control. This is from a purely biological standpoint, this is just the way things are here. This is the way things are with humans. I'm not stating anything, about it. That's why, I'm not stating anything about actual alien cultures, if they even exist. I'm just saying that, because somebody always brings it up, but this sci-fi author wrote this story where the females were the stronger ones. Yeah, okay. And there will be a different biological order, but that is not our order.
So you're saying patriarchy is going to exist on this planet until our alien overlords return, and then it might change.
Assuming our alien overlords have a different biological setup, yes. If they have the same one as us,
they could be the external force,
right?
If they wanted to see things differently, the alien overlord. Oh, that the technology those alien overlords have is like a million years beyond what we have.
Right. I mean, obviously it's silly because aliens aren't real. As Elon Musk likes to say, his hardware spends more time in space than anyone else. So he is the most likely person to know, and he has no evidence for them. And I know how the conspiracy theorists say, oh, he's just hiding bullshit, whatever. If the aliens were real, we'd know. Sorry, guys. It's just that easy. But what that means is that from now until if we discover that aliens exist and have a different biological setup, the males of this species will be the dominant force on this planet, and therefore That will be the patriarchy.
I kind of think so. Well, I don't have much more unless you do. I just wanted to kind of do a discussion of patriarchy and see what came out. It's a really important concept, something we don't think about what it is and how essential it is, and
Yeah.
where we're going. Where would you say we are at on the patriarchy cycle right now? Are we close to the bottom in patriarchy? Are we still going down, or have we turned the corner and is patriarchy starting to become ascendant?
We have not turned the corner yet. You will know when we turn the corner because patriarchy will be the reaction to the crisis. We are not in crisis yet. We will be relatively soon. Very likely, there needs to be a sort of capitulation where to use a trading term, there needs to be a sort of capitulation where the matriarchists win a lot, and you've kind of actually seen that, with Trump placing women in high places of power, the woman pastor thing, right? Like there's, and then the Democrats want to do even more than that, so there hasn't been a sort of final capitulation. There hasn't been, the crisis has not started. Nick, if he's listening in, he'll be screaming, 2029.
So,
But
do you
we're
think
close.
we're close to the bottom, and that for right now it does not seem like women are going to be gaining much more power over men?
If they do, it'll be very, very temporary. It's kind of like a blow off top, right? You get a big move, but it very quickly reverses, that kind of thing. If it happens at all, I can't promise that will happen. Not all markets roll over and die off blow off tops, guys. That's just one way it could go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be that it's sort of that so much other stuff gets so bad elsewhere that the females just sort of give up trying and say, and then the men just kind of step into the role.
Well, in the stock market, equities or whatever, you can have like the triple top.
Mm-hmm.
It's up. Everybody's euphoric. Well, there's a little bit of pullback, and then everybody becomes euphoric again. It goes up. Just maybe can't quite, or it just makes a slight new peak, and that's it. Then it might come down, and then with just superhuman effort and a lot of belief and hopey, changey wish, it again creates about the same peak. It's just lost all gas. It cannot go any higher. You could have one peak and down, you could have two peaks and down, three peaks and down, but when you're out of energy, at some point you say, yeah, you always see in retrospect, yep, they were out of energy. That's when the trend changed. You never see it while you're living it in the moment.
Correct.
You can always see it in retrospect.
And you don't, and here's the other thing about retrospect, guys. So we all know in 1929, October 29th, the great crash of 29. Okay. In March, by Christmas time of 2029, the market had settled down. And by March, the market was starting to recover. And everyone thought, phew, we're safe. And that's when the crash really started. And that might be what you get. There might that the Democrats are going to win 2028, and they might go, phew, we're safe. This Trump right wing thing, this was just a minor speed bump. We're safe. We're good. And they start pushing, and the bottom just falls out of everything. I could very much see that happening.
It's entirely possible. Kind of understanding the emotions that drive markets and the patterns in markets really are great insight to understanding how history ebbs and flows, ideas, because really, okay, we got a lot of program trading and computers trading, but at its essence, a market is just the combined effect of the emotions and behaviors of numerous people. And that's the same thing that drives societal changes. It's a collective, emotional, behavioral, some reason in there. Not really a lot, though.
Yeah. I mean, the part of the reason I love studying markets is because it is applied human psychology distilled into the form of a chart. And as you guys know, I love charts, I love data, and markets provide an enormous amount of data on human psychology. If you just watch them and study them. This does not make me a great trader. Just want you guys to know that.
Yeah, exactly. You learn a lot of lessons the hard way.
Yeah. But it does give great insight into how large groups of people think about all sorts of things. You can track this class of equity, and you can see how people think about pharma or ag, or you can drill down to specifics, like what do people why do people think this about this company today, right? And then the market goes ape over this report, right? There's this spectrum of micro to macro that you of human psychology that you can study on the tape. And
markets
go ahead.
Can markets be manipulated?
Sure, absolutely.
Over the long term, can markets be manipulated forever?
No.
Can humans be manipulated or propagandized?
In the short term, yes. In the long term, not really. You can bend things like the market over time goes up, right? If you look at but
human progress over time goes up.
Right, exactly. So you can bend things over time, but only to the point that they break, and then you have to climb down and recover. And yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to point out one more thing, because I've been trying to teach your wife something.
Good luck.
And debating it with her. She is adamant that we need to change the laws of divorce and child support and all this so we can fix society. I've been telling her the laws won't change before this happens. Society will change, and then we will demand the laws to change. So, I mean, there's kind of a
historically that's not usually how it goes.
How what goes?
The change of laws.
How does it happen?
There is a crisis that forces laws to change. If you look at when the majority of the amendments to the Constitution were passed, you have the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, shortly after the first Civil War. Then the next group of amendments don't happen until after the second Civil War. I mean, remember, you got 10 amendments, and then you go from like the 13th to the 18th or something like that. That's all post Civil War stuff.
I think we're in agreement here. Maybe not at the fine detail, but laws change in reactively.
Correct.
They're not changed proactively.
Correct. Now laws, and everyone says, oh, but laws change all the time. Yes, the deck chairs on the Titanic are rearranged all the time, but the core systems of law themselves are not really changed much. For example, the big fight to try and get rid of H-1Bs visas. We haven't been able to change that. Well, why not? It's clearly an emergency, and I've made that case. So why can't we change it? Well, because while certain things may or may not be an emergency, you need a culture-wide, a society-wide emergency. The Revolutionary War was a society-wide emergency. The Civil War was a society-wide emergency. The World War II was a society-wide emergency. And after all three of those events, you get this burst of constitutional changes. We're going to do that again.
Well, right now,
but not yet. Well, yeah, but not right now.
Our birth rate is too low, needs to go up. Our divorce rate is too high, needs to come down. Fathers are alienated from their children. We need more children raised by their fathers. Those are all really important things, and we should change the laws to make that happen. It's not going to happen that way. That would be a proactive change.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen in reaction to some big crisis.
Correct.
That's really been my argument. And Elena will watch this. And so maybe one more time she will, or explaining it a little differently.
No, I think for Elena, she's doing what most women do. And I don't fault her for this.
No,
because she's a woman. She's trying to prevent the crisis because she's a woman and she's scared about the crisis. And rightly so. These crises are extinction level events. You get it wrong, you go away. Okay. She's not wrong to be scared of it. And I think a lot of what she does is trying to proactively head off exactly. She's trying to proactively. Okay, Elena, you cannot stop the crisis. That is not humanly possible. It is better to prepare for it and then let it wash over you when it comes. And then afterwards, you have the conversation about how to change the laws to address the crisis.
Yeah, that's why I don't spend a lot of effort trying to prevent the crisis. I've just seen enough in my life and know enough of history that, yeah, it's just going to come. There's nothing I can do.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
There is a prerequisite for changing the laws, though. That sits in between the crisis and the change in laws.
Okay, what's that?
Patriarchy needs to make a comeback first.
Well, that's kind of the thrust of this program here. What is patriarchy? It's cyclical. It's necessary. It's going to come back. It has to come back to fix things when they get so broken that there's no other alternative.
Right. So, guys, the crisis is coming. It is not here yet. And I know that the way things are right now, you're looking at me going and screaming at me saying, how can we not already be in crisis? Oh, we are not in crisis. We're close. We're getting there. But crisis is when the load-bearing systems of the prior cycle collapse. That is the start of crisis. Then throughout crisis is dealing with the mess. You do not start rebuilding until after the crisis has been resolved. So, for the resurgence of patriarchy, haha, got our name in there. For the resurgence of patriarchy, you not only have to get to the crisis, you have to get through the crisis, because the crisis is what will teach us that the patriarchy is necessary.
Well, just look at when you fill up your car.
Ugh.
Gasoline was what, $3? Now it's
Man, when I was in Texas, it was $2.25.
yeah. But now, I mean, over the past 5 weeks, it's gone up, $1.50, depending on where you're at. Now it's $4. So you're grumbling about it. Oh, if you're in California, it's way worse. So, I mean, this is regional.
Yeah, California's pushing 7 here.
You're grumbling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a crisis yet because it's still there. It hurts. And it hurts some people a lot more than others.
Yes.
Depending on how much your income is and how much you drive. And it hurts. But it's not an existential crisis. Now, if it goes up to $10 a gallon.
I was just going to say 10.
Oh, man. Now are people really going to be screaming and protesting? And is a lot more... Are they going to be more concerned and more urgent that now you have to do something?
Well, Steve,
not just complaining. So it has to get bad enough,
right,
before people really get pissed off enough to demand a change.
Think of it this way: the average SUV has a gasoline tank that's about 20 gallons. There's some that are more, there's some that are less. Okay, fine. We'll just work with 20 gallons because it makes the math easy. If you're in California, 20 gallons at $7 a gallon is $140 a fill up. But California's been down around $5. So your marginal cost increase per tank of gas was $40.
Sucks, but
it sucks, but you can
manageable.
probably find it, cut back a little bit on the Starbucks, you can find it, right? If gas hits $10 a gallon, that same car now costs $200 to fill up. The price of a fill up doubled. You're not cutting Starbucks. You're not cutting your way out of this by cutting Starbucks. Now you have to start asking, what other of the necessities am I giving up? And by the way, those necessities are getting more expensive too.
And there are people who drive SUVs that fill up once a week.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're talking about $800 a month in gas at $10 a gallon for these people. That's that is a crisis. If you get enough people who have to choose between food and gas, now you've got a crisis. We aren't there yet, but oh boy, are we closer this month than we were in even the holidays 3 months ago.
And 2 months ago, we couldn't even imagine this happening.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a few people could, but
some people could, yeah.
In general, people were not aware of the imminent risk that was just going to start to happen. And it's just started to happen. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe the whole thing will settle down. I'm not predicting $10 gas. But if we hit $10 gas, will I be surprised? Not really.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any predictions about the oil market.
I mean,
because
$10 really gas within the next 2 years wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
I'm not predicting it though, but I'm not saying it won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I would say about that. We're not predicting it. What we're saying is it is on the menu of possible outcomes. So as you guys are preparing for this, keep that one as a possibility in the back of your head.
Right. So just in closing, just give some thought to patriarchy and what it is and how it works and whether it's needed and where it's at in its cycle.
Right. We're not there yet. I want to be very clear on that. We are not there yet. But you can see all around you that we're getting closer. The center is struggling to hold. And it will continue, and the center will continue to fail for as long as the boomers continue to march through the natural progression of life. The boomer ideology, whether you agree with it or not, is the moral and political center of this country. I'm not making a values judgment on whether or not that's a good thing. I'm just stating that as fact. But as the boomers leave us, they'll become more and more unable to maintain that ideology. And we will have to figure out what comes next. And what comes next is always defined by crisis. So the crisis is coming. It is unavoidable. I think 2029, I could be wrong. It could be 2028, could be 2030, could be 2032. I don't know.
And once it hits, it's not over in a month. Generally,
5 to 10 years.
3 to 5 years. And then it's a slow pullout, slow recovery. Could be 10 years of difficult times.
Yeah.
We've had so many years of really good times.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a while to purge the excess. Let me put it that way.
Well, one of the things I can tell you about markets, Steve, is that the longer a stock has flown high, the longer it has to spend in the doldrums after it's crashed. People have to learn the lesson. And if all you've ever known is one way of things working, the moment it looks like things are going to return back to that way of working, you go, oh, okay. And you dive right back into it. We're seeing it right now with how, I mean, shit, just go look at the tape for ES today.
That's
sorry,
S&P 500 futures.
Sorry, yeah. And what the moment that it looks like this thing in Iran is going to cool down, what does the market do? Up by 150 points. It just in an hour, right?
Yep.
Why?
And when the Taco Tuesday was announced last night.
Oh, I watched it on the tape. It took 1 hour to do that entire move, and that was it.
Crude oil dropped how much?
Crude oil dropped. The full drop was 112, 113 to the full range drop to 91. So it was 12 points. It's not that wasn't the trading range for the day, but that was the full 24-hour drop.
So on average, here's another thing to think of. And Plutarch is probably going to correct me on this. But over a number of years, the market spends about 2/3 of the time, give or take, going up. And 1/3 of the time coming down. It happens on little scales, big scales. It's fractal, if you understand that term. But the speed that it comes down is often much greater than the speed it went up. But it does it in 1/3 of the time.
It's actually worse than that. The market spends most of its time going sideways, something like 2/3 of its time going sideways. It goes up a lot slower. So the expression is you take the escalator up and the elevator down.
Right.
That's.
But I mean, a bull market includes the sideways moves.
Yeah, really people do. Okay.
So,
yes.
But okay, whatever. It's a slow climb. It's an abrupt change. That's crisis.
Right. And there's big crises and little crises. The little crises, the system, particularly, yeah, Andrew, it's going to be bad. That's just a deal with it problem. It's going to be bad. Okay. When you have a little crisis, and 2008, by the way, was a little crisis, although it was a big little crisis, but 2008 was not enough to send us into a cultural or societal crisis. It was a market crisis for sure, and it caused a lot of pain, but the systems of society were able to contain the damage. The crisis, when it hits, the defining feature of the crisis is that when it hits, all of the structures of society are so weak that they cannot contain the damage. And this causes a collapse of the structures. So what you're looking for in whatever form the crisis takes is a collapse of the structures of the old system. That is when you know we're in the real crisis. And as you can tell, we aren't there yet by that definition. The old systems are still limping along. Oh, they've been grievously wounded and they will eventually go down. But today, they are still limping along.
And it cannot be avoided. It can be postponed
Mm-hmm.
through actions and attempts, but ultimately it cannot be avoided. Now, I just take that as, that's just an act of faith and belief, because I look at history and I look at what we're doing now. Oh, yes, everybody tries to postpone the bad times, kick the can down the road. Eventually, that can hits a brick wall and can't be kicked any further.
And then you need to do something different. You need to pick the can up and carry it around the wall, or, right. It's kicking the can doesn't work anymore. And that's when the rule books can be rewritten. And I'm not just talking about law. I'm talking about society and culture here too. That's when patriarchy can pick up again. But for the moment, us who believe that patriarchy is the necessary and correct method, we will have to carry on toiling in obscurity and suffering for our faith. So for now, carry on, folks. This isn't the crisis you're looking for, but do be mindful because it is coming.
Well, thanks for tuning in. I enjoyed this discussion. I had no idea where it was going to go, but now you see how two nerds can take a simple thing and turn it into a 2-hour back and forth discussion.
We might have stretched it out a little more than we needed to. Just saying. And we missed having Nick. He's having technical difficulties. He's moving around the country trying to get work all sorted out. You guys know that he moves around the country for what he does. So this is just one of those times.
He should be settled now for a while.
Okay, well that would be good. Nick owes us an episode or two, though, don't you think, Steve?
Oh, he does, and he's wanting to do it, and he's lamenting the fact that he can't because his internet isn't reliable enough right now. Maybe next week it will be.
Yeah, he was in the chat earlier today. He was lamenting the fact that he had stuff ready to go, but he didn't feel like he could stick around to actually do it. And it looks like, on the basis this evening, he was correct. So we will grant him this grace for this evening. He does have stuff ready to go for you guys. If he's stable next week, we're gonna put him up there because he's got some stuff he wants to talk with you guys about. So.
Yep.
Don't know exactly what it'll be yet. So that's next week. Yes, you can join on Saturday. You can join my wife's show on Saturday. She hasn't
Well-
decided what she's going to be talking about yet.
I'm not going to be there, and I don't think Nick's going to be there.
Oh man. Okay, well maybe
So,
we're not doing a show
It
on
might
Saturday then.
even there might not be a show.
Yeah, okay. There might if yeah, that's right. Nick can't be there. You know what, guys? She's been pushing really hard on other stuff she's doing. We might just call it and say we're not doing anything this Saturday for her. That might be a good thing for her. So she can get she needs some rest. So no show on Saturday, but we will be back next week. Nick has stuff he wants to share with you guys, so we'll do that. All right. Any final thoughts, Steve?
Nope.
All right. Well, we will see you all next Wednesday then. Later.
But
There was a firefight! Son of a bitch!